We're on the air now. And now, live from the Swords of St. Michael Studios, it's The Real Deals, Kenneth and Farah Deel. Welcome to the show. It's The Real Deals, live, and we're live, and we're live.
And we're live.
Fun, fun, fun tonight. And this is part 2 of the 20 things about demons. 20 things that we know about demons shared right here with you, our listening audience. And there's questions that you can put up and ask them live from the comments room. This time we don't have a call-in number.
Exactly.
For the show, we don't have one available.
No, but Deb and I do write down questions. And
Deb's monitoring the chat room.
And her trees are moved. The lines are up.
Yeah, we'll monitor it occasionally.
Occasionally.
Yeah. So welcome to our YouTube listeners and the streaming listeners out there, our FM stations, iHeartRadio, or whoever may be listening for whatever format. And there's no time like the present to start our prayer.
Start the prayer.
In the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, amen. Saint Michael, the Archangel, defend us in battle, be our protection against the malice and the snares of the devil. May God rebuke him when we humbly pray. And do thou, Prince of the heavenly hosts, by the divine powers of God, cast into hell Satan and all the other evil spirits, the realms of the world, seek and ruin the souls. Amen. Most Sacred Heart of Jesus, have mercy on us. Immaculate Heart of Mary, pray for us. And Deb, you're back. I'm glad to have you back in one piece. I hear your hair is messy from all the wind. Other than that, you just got your electricity on Saturday night?
Aquanet.
Aquanet, yeah, I remember that stuff. Yeah, your hair becomes like an ornament. But it's good to have you back. So Deb will be monitoring the chat rooms and jumping in, of course, in the conversation. There's our co-hostess with the mostest. That's only second to Farah. She's the hostess with the mostest. Okay, so we're going to crack into our list, but first we're going to answer some of the questions from last week, just as a courtesy. You know why? Because
we couldn't get to them last week, Deb. We were just like, we were really hoofing it, man. If you like remember the hoofers from Old Broadway, boy, they were sweating it trying to get everything in at the last minute. So yeah we've got to get these questions in. So we promise we do it right now, folks.
It's the only thing that's right. Okay, so which one do you want to go over first?
Well, I really thought this one was really important from our dear Jen 80 about she was trying to comfort somebody that was mourning. And whereas some people may not think that this is related to demons, it's very related. So listen to the question, and we're going to tell you. Okay. Now, when somebody's mourning, let's say they lost a loved one, they say, they lost a dog, and they're sad, and they're feeling horrible, and they're feeling lost. And you go to comfort them, and you say, well, I'm going to pray, God bless you. Just God bless you. Just something simple like that. And out of the blue, they say, well, I don't believe in God. How can you comfort a person like that? That's a really good question.
Yeah, part of my ministry, nationwide, worldwide, and diocese-wise, is that they consider us evangelists. So we try to bring people to the faith. It's not just, people are haunted. Could even be a divorced couple, working on helping the divorced couple not divorce or get back together. Because a lot of times it's really, really bad reasons for people divorcing. I mean, I'm not bad like, oh, this person's really bad. I'm just talking about like, oh, I just don't like the way she combs her hair. And then, of course, they'll even go so far as to lie. But on that one, boy, it's like we run into that with these haunted cases, and it's like our hands are almost tied if they won't help themselves. But this isn't a haunted case, so you can ease your way in without the devil trying to destroy them directly, because the devil's not in their life in the physical presence, huh?
Totally.
So it's difficult to try to do that, especially when they don't see Christ in their life. That there is a God. You might have to almost wait and just use this kind of thing later on, because it's not going to comfort them to say, well, they're in heaven now. All they can think about is the moment.
True.
And sometimes suicides are like that. So they're in that kind of dangerous state in a sense, I guess, right? The despair. Sometimes the only thing you can really do is pray really hard for the person and just be there for them, be a Christ presence on the planet. What do you think? Something like we do as Franciscans, that if we can just represent Christ, in this world through our actions, our words, and our behavior, that'll reflect the presence and it'll inspire And they go, well, those are Christians. You're not judgmental. They're not like Ned Flanders and Simpsons or nothing. And they look like rock stars, or something that somebody said one time. I don't know. Is there something you want to add to that? It's just one of those sad truths that you got to figure out.
Deb, you've worked a lot in hospice, and I'm sure that you've said God bless numerous times, and people have told you, I don't believe. How do you handle that?
They have told me they don't believe.
Yeah.
And you don't know how to comfort them. It's like, I think to myself, you'll find out when you get there. That's what I think to myself.
Yeah.
It's like, so you end up changing the subject, and that's what I always did.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot more bitterness, too, now on this topic.
Oh, yeah. They were very bitter people to begin with.
So, in trying to answer the question, how can you comfort them?
Mm-hmm.
Comforting is a two-way street. If they want comfort, they reach out for it. Whereas, in many cases, and a lot of the cases we take, as you know, Deb, a lot of people say they want help, and they want to kick and scream and say, oh, this is horrible, and look what's happening to me. I can't believe this, and look at this, and look at that. But when it comes down to you offering the comfort of follow these steps, and you're going to start seeing some results, how many people actually follow through with it and actually receive the comfort? So my suggestion would be, if someone says that they don't believe, then I would give them a double blessing, and I'd say, well, I'm going to pray God bless you twice. One, for an increase of your faith, and two, that you never have to say I don't believe again.
Mm-hmm. And if you run into them again, you don't need to repeat that.
No,
just keep
you don't.
doing that practice, you promise.
You don't need to repeat it.
Mm-hmm.
And just, like Deb said, you can change the subject and said, sorry for your loss.
Exactly.
I'm sorry for your loss. That's all you can do is
sometimes you just hold their hand.
Yep.
And just say kind words, and just, you change the subject, and you talk about something else, and you comfort them that way.
Yeah.
Just by holding their hand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I could use your, Holy Spirit within you to get them calm, and it's not like they're relying on humanism or humans only, but that's what it is. We're supposed to be that way, not nasty,
we are.
not different, and and that's a way to lead them to it.
I agree.
I always thought the only person that was really nice to me, and they'll remember, and they'll make a connection at some point. Yeah, and they're in that stage, they might be in denial and going through all these phases like a divorced person.
Exactly.
There's these cycles.
Well, before we get on to the next question, I want to mention real quick, Doris in chat just asked for prayers for her husband. He's in the emergency room right now.
Okay.
And sometimes when somebody needs a prayer, it doesn't hurt to say a silent prayer in your head for that person. So Doris, we'll take your husband to prayers tonight as well. So anybody that hears this, if you could offer a little prayer up before you go to bed for Doris's hubby in ER. It's never comfortable to have a loved one in the emergency room. Never. Okay, on with the next question, folks, for tonight. David Fritz had a great question because this is related directly to what we were talking about, kids. And this has to do with the spirit realm. And he wants to know the term exactly, unclean spirit. What is an unclean spirit?
And someone also asked in that same block, I think, what is a minion? So answer the first one first.
Yeah, go with the unclean spirit.
I don't know why, but there's a lot of prayers that are in some of the, even the rituals, whatever, evil and unclean spirits. That's okay if it's an unclean spirit, so it's not evil, or is an evil spirit not unclean? So they're like, is it just like saying it kind of like redundancy? That's possible. I mean, because when some things are said like minions, we call the spirits that come out of hell.
Yep.
And not all of them do, and help demons. We call them minions to some degree, but also if you have a higher demon and then you have the lower order ones that are the size of cats, rodents, whatever, and they're larger numbers, but they're not as smart, they're not hierarchy is very low. We call them minions too. It's almost like, minions definition, another one of those things, it might be different in how even the church refers to many words. As we pointed out last week, the word phantom, Gabriel Amorth doesn't recognize the word phantom as ghost, is the word ghost. We recognize ghosts as human spirits, not necessarily recognizable like an apparition, But that's the problem with definitions on that thing, too. So evil and unclean spirits. Unclean spirit can be impure spirits. I've heard that before.
Very much so.
Impure spirits, obviously would be ones that particularly are about not anger, not about death. Those seem to be the same spirits, same class. But ones that are about immorality. And the death ones could smell like burning flesh, rotting flesh. If you have an infestation in that type of spirits in your house, you might actually get the auras and the smells of things that's their forte, or their classification represents that. While it's an impure spirit is going to represent things of lust and impurity and that sort of things. Foul odors can be just even related to sinful sexuality or anything. So no, I'm not. Don't seem to recall that there was something special about what they mean by unclean spirits. Sorry, that's one of the ones that.
Can I tell
we
you?
don't have a direct answer. Yeah, let's hear what you got to say.
From my experience, anything that bedevils or oppresses you is an unclean spirit, because the cleanliness and purity and holy of all God's servants, His angels, are pure. Absolutely pure.
Mm-hmm.
So in their filth, and I mean the absolute rejection of all that is beautiful and good, from even before the 1600s, when the rite was actually formally codified in our Catholic faith, meaning yours too if you're Christian, the quote in one of the major rituals is unclean spirit. Or in other words, it's a commanding operative. I cast you out, you unclean spirit. Now, to say, is that when they are addressing the person being exorcised, is this 1 spirit, 10 spirit, 20 spirits? Depending on if the unclean spirit, what his hierarchy is among the fallen angels. If he is a general of sorts, he may have 5 others with him. So the unclean spirit title may be him and everybody he brought in. It just depends. But know that unclean spirit is bad, it's horrible, it's dangerous.
Yeah, that's a good one too. That's probably the best thing that someone come up with. I remember when I pray a prayer, and it's a pre-written one, like you said, somebody's prayers, rituals, binding, and they address demons. But I'm thinking, what about the human spirits? Well, you can't assume minions, but that, remember, Christ refers to the evildoer. So evil spirits can be hell spirits, human spirits. So if you're just saying demons, you're not actually saying you spirits of hell, because they're not demons. Technically, in the church, the fallen angels are demons. Don't get started on that stupid Nephilim, souls of Nephilim stuff again out there. So, but
Athena had a good point. We're talking, you guys, about minions and stuff. She said, are the small ones that crawl around on the floor, are those ones considered minions? Can you address that?
Minions, yeah, those are, like, if you start to have an argument.
The small ones that crawl along the baseboards of the floor.
When you have an infestation, what's funny, it's just like you hear sounds, it sounds like rodents, and sometimes people call it exterminators with that. It sounds just like, some squirrels in a wall or rodents. And then if you could see it with, well, let's say an eye that's unveiled,
yes.
Like the sensitive people out, mystics or whatever, that they can see, and they'll grow in numbers when an argument's continuing, and then next thing you know, the whole floor would be covered it with like a black water, just them moving around like cattle. And they'll be really small, sometimes larger, but they don't grow in size, they grow in numbers. The more arguments you do, the more they kind of come in there and collect. And they will look deep black. You don't just see fuzzy little mammals for some reason. Like I said, people see them as black cats, black rodents, or some strange-looking combination of some kind of rodent, hamster, or guinea pig, or some, not as small as a hamster, though. So yeah, the infestation. It's like, I always wonder. It's like, okay, why they're trying to get our attention to get the scratches in the wall, and then it's funny, and then they actually look like they are the things that the noises you're hearing.
Yes.
And I always thought that was kind of strange. It's like, why would imitate God's world of His animals, and God's forcing them to reveal Himself, like the 3 knocks on the door, something customary. I don't know. It's
And Zulma says holy water and frankincense, and I said yes. Zulma, holy
yeah, if
water
you have a
and
big
frankincense.
argument, clear your house because they're still
Please
there.
get it blessed in the old rite. If you have to print it up and carry it to the priest and say, please pray this, have him pray it. Have him bless all your objects with holy water. Sprinkle the salt in the holy water to do it in the old rite. And yes, use it frequently. Bless your house every night, Zulma. Definitely. And the prayers are on the website, folks, at www.swordsofstmichael.org. Don't forget to like and share the video if you can. And thank you all for being here. We do have a halftime giveaway, kids. So don't go anywhere because you have to be present to win.
That's right.
All right, Ken, should we get on to the next question?
Okay, Catholic or Christian? We heard the term come up, I think, from the other denominations. They said, I thought you were Christian. Oh, I am Catholic. We've been Christian for 2,000 years. We were Christian before it was cool. I don't know where the term comes from, but, I mean, the terms for many years, and even them other denominations use the term Protestant. I always kind of thought it was kind of, they're all not equal. So put them in the same category as the Protestants, which came from the Luther Reformation, and there was actually a protesting, against, and it's even King Henry VIII, who created the Anglican / Episcopal Church, very violent, and he burned monasteries and killed monks, and he was the guy. Remember, he cut off his wives' heads, and he got mad at the church because they wouldn't give him a divorce, and so. There's a lot of war and association, and they didn't seem to have a problem with the word Protestant, but now they kind of say, I'm Christian. Well, just say you're Lutheran, or say, just so people know where you're coming from. But Catholics, always been Christians, and that was the original Christian. Back as far back as you can go in history, the way before the Crusades, back all the way to the Apostles and all that. It was always Christian, but they didn't call them that. That was kind of things they came up with later, the term Christian, just like the word Catholic, which means universal. But I don't know if I guess that's a quick enough answer. What's the next one, dear? Got one more?
Next one is, let's see. Some days. Okay, I guess that one is it on my list. I think we're on to... what?
One thing I want to mention real quick was... we talked about, you're referring to this case in New York. Remember this young lady who had a spirit on her?
Having blackouts?
Yeah, I think it was the only one we were talking about. And you know what her name is. It's right there. Just I don't want to mention it.
No, we don't mention it.
And that case that had a happy ending. There was a priest who came, and we actually have to sometimes get the priest over there to talk with him about something unrelated, and you do something. Can you bless my girlfriend before you leave? And then she went under possession, and he took a step back and said, "Ooh, this is above my pay grade." More or less, he didn't say that, but he's not authorized by the bishop to deal with that sort of thing. I mean, you can try, but it's kind of reckless a little bit for the priest. So he went to his bishop, and the bishop got an exorcism done on her in 30 days and got rid of it. She was the one that was waking up or coming to after blacking out in the office bathroom and all that, Farah, you were talking about. Yeah. But that one had a good ending, and she was very young. She was only 21, and she had a fiancé. So I just wanted to put that in there so we don't leave you hanging. That one actually got done. So let's move on. I guess we'll just go from number 11, it looks like.
Yeah, number 11. This is
number
a good
11,
one.
Number 11.
Well, this is when we talked about Deb before the show started. Yep.
Let's see. Some shadow people are ghosts, but their blackness reveals the type of ghost they are. Therefore, they are either condemned ghost or a demonic. In a very rare case, they're an unascended spirit, as they were talking about purgatory ghost.
I thought we were on 11.
That is 11. Wait, we got the same
list? I have demons.
Oh my gosh, I got an old... Oh, sorry. How did I need my own list.
Here, you want to share mine? I've got the original.
I don't have to share.
You're too funny.
Oh man, it's like I cleaned up the office and I cleaned everything out of here.
I was going to say my dog ate my homework.
Oh my goodness. Demons know the difference between a fake priest and a real one.
That's what we just talked to Deb about.
Okay, we'll just pass it back and forth, okay? like love notes in high school.
Oh my gosh. Hey, Danny's in the house.
Yeah, demons know the difference between a fake priest and a real one. Now, the Satanists who steal Roman Catholic host to be used in rituals, black masses, and they desecrate it, basically. Satan gives them the ability to go in and see that the host in the tray is unconsecrated or not. They won't touch it if it's unconsecrated. So sometimes they actually have to go up to communion, and of course they put it right in the hand right away. So all they got to do is slide a hand and stick it in their pocket.
Very easily.
Because it can't be dissolved. It cannot get put in the mouth. Yeah, you can't fool demons. They know it. Some people can see, some mystics at church and so forth, can see a different color aura around a priest, a green aura, I think it is. So some regular people might have that, or aren't yet saints or whatever, for whatever reason. But demons definitely know, and it's for everything. They see everything that's going on in their life. That demon that follows that fake priest around, is the continuum, the collective, like the Borg from old Star Trek. That what one demon knows, the others can, because they can send themselves, inter-office memorandums and stuff like that, memos, faxes, and so you can't fool a demon. If you go on to, Zach Baggins show or Ghost Hunters, and you got a Roman collar on, and they didn't take any time to check out that this supposed Catholic affiliation doesn't exist, or you have no legitimate organization, but you sound and look like a priest, that's good enough for me. That seems to be the attitude. You go in there and you go to the house and you get scratched the first 10 minutes when you're there. Oh, 3 hot scratches. It's like, oh, great, okay, that's either fake or, well, I'd give it more credit to say that the demon particularly doesn't like people pretending to be a priest. You think it's bad for the paranormal investigators themselves who might come without the faith? It's worse to go in there and fake it. So, anything to add to that? Because that's, I don't know.
Well,
Watch who you call.
We're talking about holy priests, right? We're talking about fake priests.
Yeah, versus,
Well, let's establish what a priest is first, okay? Because I think that's pretty important, don't you, Deb?
Yeah.
I mean, somebody's calling themselves a priest, then they have followed a certain set of requirements, a certain set of years. There are many, many people who go and get a graduate degree or buy a $20 one online saying that they've got a doctorate of divinity. And a doctorate of divinity is a very, very thorough course of study and can take 7 to 12 years depending on the individual. And most priests that are within the Catholic faith, minimum they go is 10 years. They have a well-rounded education. And priests from other faiths, like Episcopal, Lutheran, Methodist, Episcopalian,
the seminary 10 years.
they do have to have a certain seminary training. So if you're going to have somebody into your house and you're going to try and discern, whether this person is a fake, a phony, or holy, they usually need to have some sort of local affiliation. All churches. And this is in, my haunted investigation book, kids. This is in that book again. I hate to keep saying it, but that's the reason I wrote Haunted Investigations. In order to check somebody's credentials, there's a certain set of protocol that you can follow within any city or town. They have ministerial associations. So it's like, if you need to find the local shaman, the local rabbi, and they will have referrals that are what? They're reliable. And then, to be extra careful, you ought to call, let's say you're looking for your rabbi, you ought to call the temple. You ought to find out exactly how long they've been there, what they've been doing. There's ways to find out if somebody is, let's just say they're going on their own recognizance and telling people, yes, I'm definitely a priest. And because the sad thing is, folks, anybody can buy a collar. These little Roman collars, I think they're like $1.79. Stick them in, a black shirt that you can get off the rack for $2 at your local Goodwill. And how difficult is it to lift a free Bible out of any hotel and call yourself a priest?
And it's not that hard to check either. Now, what if someone steals the identity of a priest and they go and look at the website and the guy's name's there in the picture? How do they still know it's him? You'd have to call the office and then get them on the phone and then talk to them and say, oh, yeah, that's me in the forum. Well, I ran into this lately. I'm not going into detail about it, but you can call the office of the bishop and then and then they'll tell you. Don't sit there and be a jerk to somebody right off the bat unless you already proved that they're not who they say they are, or there isn't any proof, or they mention in the thing, "Oh, my Episcopal orders comes from the old Roman Catholic, Anglican Roman Catholic
the
Church."
The old Roman Catholic that was
It's always a new name.
The Norwegians and the Poles and the Swedes and the French and all this. You've run into a couple of those, haven't you, Deb?
She might have.
That's why they fake it till they make it.
I know.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
Yeah, that's like with the Amityville house,
gosh.
too.
That's so cool. Did you guys see Danny Holleroyd's in there, and he's blasting the Real Deal show for, the iHeartRadio network on their network. That is so cool. Thank you, Danny. That's really sweet of you.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
There is...
Don't forget to like and share the
like and
video.
subscribe. Subscribe and like and subscribe.
Paranormal Now Network. That's what it is. Thanks,
Oh,
Danny.
yeah,
Paranormal Now.
Yeah, we have
on their
another
very own channel. Oh, you're too funny.
network director is
Yes,
going to be doing iHeartRadio. Works for them. But yeah, hey Dan, and I say hi to Bob for us.
Yes.
Well, let's see.
All right, shall we get on to number 12?
Number 12 is...
Oh, wait a second. I have I have a question from Patricia in the chat room. This is appropriate. Because she said she was at a friend's house, okay? And she said she saw this shadow person, and the shadow person looked like it was like actually in the shape of somebody that was recently deceased in the house. And she says, is that a message of death? Or possibly, was that just... possibly like a ghost or something? Was that a message of death? Seeing a shadow person in a house where somebody had just died.
With somebody that just died?
Somebody had just died. The husband had just died, and she said it kind of looked like the shape of him.
Oh.
Yeah.
I mean, in other words, you could see clothes on it? It just wasn't some naked Oscar?
No, she said it was shadow. So if it was shadow, it was all black.
Okay.
Black.
And so it wasn't some hooded specter-looking thing, a disproportionate 7 foot?
Looked like the shape of the guy that died.
I don't know. When you see those things, you probably should start your purgatory prayer just to make sure that they have, their...
Yeah, maybe they're restless.
Their spiritual rest and peace, and help them to get to heaven, as we talked about last week. But it's also... something happens when people die in a house, or they die.
I'm sorry.
Something comes out of that.
Patricia just corrected me. He died 5 years later.
Oh, 5 years later?
He died 5 years later, yeah.
It's like, could be, sometimes spirits show up because they're trying to intimidate you, or they have a desire, like, what happened to me when I was 18? I wake up sitting up in bed at 1 in the morning, and I see this 7 foot high shadow with a hooded cloak pointing a long disproportionate arm at me when I said, what do you want? Because I'm half asleep. And I would have said, ran out of there like the Three Stooges,
You still do.
But instead, there's it stood and pointed at me, and when I said, what do you want? Like I'm Scrooge or something. But, I didn't get into near-death situations, but maybe it was one of those indications, if you stay on a path, I was 18, that, they might have come and tried to collect me in 5 years. Maybe it was just like, that's what they want. Maybe, look at what I'm doing now. I started, like, talking to people about things, I don't know, you call it early investigations, I don't know. We used to go through old houses and all that, abandoned farmhouses and stuff when I was 16. Maybe I picked something up back then. But I can't really find any correlation, like it was some sort of omen or something. So I don't really trust any of that. 5 years is a long time for them to collect.
For a message of death.
Yeah.
Yeah, for a shadow person. Yeah.
We have another question from the chat room.
Oh, good.
Go ahead.
Shoot it,
If
Deb.
you have had an exorcism, should you be living with a guy in an unmarried way?
Yeah, that's that. Yeah, got into this topic of a black matter.
Well, in an unmarried way. Let's decipher.
I think we all have our own opinions about this.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what. We may have our own opinions, but we also have the facts of what happens. We had a couple cases like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, depending on how bad it is, especially when something goes as far as oppression or possession, you can no longer diet your spiritual life with any kind of thing that's potentially mortal sin. I mean, venial sins aren't going to add up as much. They can weaken you and get you to mortal sin, but you can't be a drunkard and this other stuff. You're going to be more vulnerable being around somebody who's been possessed before, or having possessed yourself. You're spiritually vulnerable by being with a person. So if you're having intimacy with them, you're kind of sharing that spiritual weakness with them. in that state of mortal sin. You're not, for example, well, of course you are because you crossed that line.
And that's like reopening the doors again.
Basically.
Yeah, and we noticed that too, is that act, and it's not fun to say. Everybody, I know the way dating works now, first night's no longer just a kiss. That act seems to be the biggest problem in next to the occult. When they mix the two together, there's a huge problem, and it's hard to get out of there because most of them don't even have marriage set up anytime soon, and they're still living together. And how are you going to get them to end that relationship? And are they expect a magic bullet to take care of everything in there and go on as they lived before? And they can't. Mm-hmm. It's like you have a heart attack or you end up with diabetes. Yes. You have to change your diet, and you have to stay that way because some people can't get away with it spiritually. Because you are dabbling and making yourself spiritually vulnerable by doing that anyway. But then when you add the occult, or you move into a haunted house where someone else already opened doorways, or the person had already been there, like the way, Deb, you have to walk that fine line just because your whole family was a target and vulnerable. Mm-hmm. You became more sensitive to these things, kind of like, opened you up. But it also made you vulnerable to the point that you have to be on guard so that you don't wake up with sleep paralysis and a specter floating over you. Oh, sorry, Deb. Deb! Oh, is she chopping up?
No, I'm here. I said exactly. Definitely.
Oh, okay. I thought you were saying something longer.
No.
I'm sorry, Deb. I'm sorry.
You got your sippy cup.
Yes, he's got his little
Yeah. We're going to take a quick break. And,
that's right, and then guess what?
Giveaway.
It's time for a drawing and continue on with the big
Real
list.
Deal swag. Don't forget, like and share our video, kids. Subscribe if you can. We'll be back in like 1 minute and a half. So be there. Don't be square, please. Come back. Like a heart attack. Right? Okay, kids, we're going to make this super fast.
If you call that. Super fast.
Welcome back to the second half of our show. So Steve was saying, I hope I got in the drawing. Yes, you got in the drawing, dear. Okay, so tonight's little goodie bag, our little party sack, you're going to get, this is like real swag, folks. This is like if you walked around for 5 hours in any cool convention center, you would get what? Swords.
Stopped by the security guard?
Matches.
Oh, I'm sorry.
What's wrong with you? And also we have this really cool little bobble-headed jobby-do thingy. What the heck is this?
Hey, that's not nice.
Swords of St. Michael, little key ring to hypnotize your demons away. Oh. And of course, just in case, you want to remember what we look like, a little magnet.
Oh, you're giving all three of those away?
Yeah, I'm giving all 3 away. Wait a second. I've got a better price for next month, kids. Okay, so do you want to draw? I know you can't read. All right, stick your hand in the cookie jar, baby, and not that one. This one.
Wishful thinking, Farah.
I know. It's
well,
so bad. He can't read it anyway.
We got 2 winners, apparently. Oh, it's folded in half.
It's folded in half. Oh, my gosh. This person just asked for prayers. You're not going to believe this. Zulma Diaz.
Zulma? She's always winning. What's the deal with her?
She hasn't won in like 6 months.
She gets stuff.
No, I just sent
winning.
Zulma prayers. So congratulations, Zulma. Zulma. And you guys stay tuned because we are going to have more giveaways. Okay, thank you. Welcome back to the second half. We just had to take a quick break because we're trying to format the show correctly for, the people are going to carry it. Thank you, Danny, for joining us. Thank you all for being here tonight. Live video was interrupted. Isn't that nice of them? A couple of people said they got bumped out. That's just so impolite, Facebook.
Yeah, well, it looks like the stream is pretty strong on there, so we're good.
Yes.
Yeah, we got high speed.
Okay, we are on number
studio.
12.
Number 12.
Lucky number 12, kids. Number 12.
Underdog.
And this is good. And you know what? Tony Copabianco was addressing this in the chat. A demon by any other name is still a demon. A Dybbuk, a jinn, malevolent spirit. What were we talking about? That whole evil thing. Unclean spirit.
Yeah.
A demon by any other name. Okay, so we've all heard things called different names. Like, what's a good name for some of the spirits they call Deb, I'm losing my brain cells.
Oh,
here.
like Wraith, Black Shuck.
Yes. Oh, it was just a ray.
Elemental.
Oh, how about a cute little elemental?
Yeah.
An elemental can't harm you.
It's still a fallen angel. It's just a different class.
It's still a demon.
Yeah. And then the higher ones are called devils sometimes. I mentioned that today in some form. That devils are the ones that, well, Deb, you had a devil in your case in 1980s.
Oh, yes.
That's the one that you're going to have a heck of a time getting out of your house or out of a person.
Yes.
Because people will get possessed by lower minions, and they're out just by you looking at them. I mean, one time this guy's fiance would say a prayer when she would go under, and this one time she just dropped her head back and let out a breath, and then she was back to herself. And he just did that every time it happened. Isn't that funny? And he was just her fiance, because it was a lower level spirit that came through her practicing those forms of witchcraft. So.
Yeah.
That's the good thing. It wasn't a higher one, because it can be addicting to get out when you're dabbling with those. A jinn. They had a movie about that, and you think about, okay, they're demons of fire. Well, we already had that elemental fire. Remember the elements? Earth, water, fire. Remember they act like Saint Michael is like the archangel of fire. Well, no, he's an archangel. Okay, so even if you use a fiery sword, it doesn't mean he's the angel of fire or anything like that. But it doesn't matter what country, what name you are, that kind of thing. If you put your own name on demons, they're still fallen angels, and they're still demons. So sometimes people do in the other cultures mistake demons to be ghosts and ghosts to be demons. But that's another thing we already talked about. And anything to add, and we'll move on.
We get to move on.
Okay, what's next one?
Number 13. All right, nobody lose your cookies over this one.
No. Yeah, I'm going to have a sheet in front of me.
All Christians cannot rebuke demons. Mere observations indicate this true. Now, I know we're going to get like a bunch of comments on our channel that say, oh, yes, God's given me the right to rebuke this and rebuke that, and I can cast and this and that because I'm Christian and I'm baptized and I have the blood and everything else. Oh. I'm not going to disagree with you there. What we're trying to point out, folks, okay, all Christians cannot rebuke demons, okay? So that means all Christians cannot rebuke demons. All Christians can rebuke things that are bothering you, but unless you have faculties or spiritual authority over somebody, you cannot rebuke the demons that are attached to him. If anything, you just put a giant red target on your forehead and said, come get me. Yeah. Not good.
So your spouse, your kids, and that's it. Basically. But you just can't go to a stranger's house, just anybody. And I had to mention this a few times, Facebook forums and whatever groups, we can call them forums, and that's the web. But there's, as soon as you bring up the fact and they know a reference, and they're being honest, because some people have to say and be right no matter what.
Oh, isn't that
and they won't back down for nothing. They can't be corrected. They'll say, oh, yeah, when you just say this simple thing, like, have you noticed some people that just get beat up over this stuff, and then you think that it's just not their calling? All of them use the word, it's a calling. Okay, if it's a calling, then why isn't everybody called? Even though because they say the Bible gives, but doesn't give you to do that over strangers or do it as a ministry. Everybody's not cut out to go to war. Everybody's not cut out to be an artist. You have sometimes the teachers trying to make everybody an artist, but some kids are artists naturally, or musicians.
Yes.
In a way, it's kind of another trade, but it's a vocation, it's a calling, I guess, in a way in itself.
And it's not that there are Christians out there that, there's no way they can rebuke demons. If God's given them certain faculties, they're going to be successful. But they have to really observe a very, very, shall we say, tight rein of spiritual practice, spiritual exercises every single day. Yeah. It's like anything else. You can't, if you've got a marathon, you want to run a 50-mile marathon, you can't just maybe lift a couple weights for 5 minutes and maybe walk a few times a week. You're not going to make the marathon. The same thing with rebuking demons. It's not going to happen.
Well said. Yeah, there's a lot of crap, and it's like you try to pray for discernment, get a spiritual director, and ask them what they think. Somebody looking at you from the outside in says, and remember the Roman ritual has in there a description of priests and what qualifications they should have to be appointed a priest. Piety, extraordinary, and some of these faculties, the personality and not just the fact that they're by ordination a priest, although their office does give them authority. Some of them aren't up for it because that's not what they want to do, and if your heart's not in it, that's going to weaken it. Some will come kicking and screaming. I don't know exactly if we just had it thrown in our faces and became victims before we became people that help others. Like sometimes if someone who's a divorce counselor had to go through a divorce, perhaps, or bad relationships, to advise about bad relationships. You have to have been there. What would a group therapy session be like if the leader was never an alcoholic? If it's Alcoholics Anonymous or something.
Somebody posted something online, and I was hoping to address this, and I didn't get a chance to. I don't know if you saw it, Deb, but somebody posted a meme of Ed Warren handing Lorraine a skull over her shoulder, taken in her house, where you had those wonderful muffins, Deb, and the meme basically said, I don't want a love like Romeo and Juliet. I want a love like Lorraine and Ed. I don't think people understand. You don't want a love like Ed and Lorraine, honey. Because what they had to go through, the personal sacrifices, the constant oppression they had to deal with from everything that they stuck their nose in.
Totally.
It's not fun.
Mm-hmm.
It's not fun. It's horrible.
They had to work at it. It didn't come easy.
No.
Yeah.
No. And everything
and
that
I just want to ask about, you were telling people about rebuking demons.
Yes.
You rebuke demons, even if it's for yourself and for your family, your immediate family. Mm-hmm. Don't you have to do it in the name of Jesus Christ?
Yeah, always. If we're not priests. One of the confusions that I hear, and I even hear Father Chad Rippinger, one of our favorite lecturers, PhD exorcist, and St. Thomas Aquinas in the living, reincarnation. Sorry about that, Father Chad. That we pay attention when he says some things. He's talking about the priests, and then he has to restate it because it's such a touchy subject. Say only priests can do this and that. Well, then again, the older sister of a family actually was able to remove a demon, using Jesus' name. But here's the difference: a priest can say, "Be gone, evil spirit." He's using the authority of his church, and like an apostle and so forth. He doesn't have to say Jesus' name in that sense, and he'll pray the litany before. He'll pray before. But we do. If we don't buffer ourselves between the Spirit and Jesus, something's going to go bad on us, because only the priest has that faculty. That's what they mean when they say, only a priest can do this stuff. Ladies shouldn't be doing. No, they're not. They're not right. And Father Chad has to go into detail. It's such a kind of intricacy, and it can be mistaken, and everybody runs out and thinks they can do it. But when you put Jesus in there, it's a buffer. Well, we held up a crucifix in one case. We touched it to the forehead. I did not touch them with my hands and go, "He be gone, demons." I didn't do anything like that. It's when you directly do it. That's only for a priest. Better it's an appointed exorcist, because the bishop can pass his default faculties of being an exorcist as a bishop by default to an appointed priest just by appointing him and consecrating him more or less that way. And so the faculties of the bishop, on that sense, are transferred to the priest, and our diocese or anywhere. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't happen because we don't have the faculties of the priesthood or the deaconate or the ordination by default. It's mainly our piety. You get a blessing from the bishop. That's better than going against the church. Got such great blessings from being cooperative and obedient to the church. That's always going to take place.
Always.
Yeah.
We're almost through, and we've only got 15 minutes, so let's get going.
All
right. What do we have next, folks? We have...
Get to that next bullet point.
That's right. Christians can become possessed.
Ooh,
contrary to popular belief, Christians can become possessed. Oh, my gosh, how does that happen? Oh, my gosh. Geez, Deb, was your brother Christian?
Yes, we all were, and guess what? We opened the door. We let him in and didn't know it.
Oh, my gosh.
Mm-hmm. You know where that comes from, Deb and Farah, is that, and listening audience and watching audience, is that there's this idea that the Holy Spirit is inside you and there's no room for any other demon. But see, they're looking at it from a physical standpoint, or in some degree, it is not true. Emily Rose was a devout Catholic, they said. Emily Rose, whatever, Annalise Michelle, I think her name was. from that movie Emily Rose.
Yes.
But that's just I'm just giving movie references because people can relate to that better than some story they never heard before.
Actually,
but it's,
as long as it's not Scooby-Doo.
Someone said that they can't have more than one demon. Someone that said people become possessed, and then what about Legion? What about some of these ones that some people call layers because there's so many in there, and it's like you can tell they get weaker and weaker each time. 10 of them, 20, 30. What was that? Did David have 40? Something.
43 was it?
Yeah, 43.
Yep.
They all had to be expelled one at a time.
Yeah, they don't just all leave now. Because minions.
No.
It's
That's
not a
why
phone
it
booth.
took so long.
Yeah, it's not college kids in a phone booth. But I think that.
And when I say we opened the doors, we opened it through a game, a simple game.
Mm-hmm.
It's still being sold today. I saw it 2 weeks ago in the store, selling for $29.99, and it's called the Ouija board.
Can you believe that? And you could probably pick it up at the resale shop even cheaper than that.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't really see those and stuff. But isn't that funny? Curiosity kills the cat, or at least possesses it.
Definitely.
I don't know. How much more can you add to that one?
Well, I just want to tie it up, because when you have the erroneous belief that you're bulletproof, the cool thing about being Catholic is they made so many outlines of what qualifies as an inviting sin.
Yeah.
And a lot of times in the other denominations, we don't exactly go over the 1, 2, 3, 4 of, how you can accidentally fall in sin and invite something horrible in, and you don't even realize it. If you watch a coworker at work, say you watch them steal some paper and take it home and you say nothing, you are complicit to sin. Why is that? Because you watched, you chose to do nothing to defend your employer, and that invites what? That invites those nasty little things that Athena was talking about, running around the floor, sniffing around your house to see what other kind of sin of, shall we say, this is a sin of complicity, of not saying anything, watching somebody else sin and doing nothing. So we don't ourselves have to literally pick up a knife and stab somebody, but when we see sins being committed and we choose to do nothing or we choose to say nothing, that makes us complicit. Just like, I'm sure you remember the case, what was it, like 23 years ago, of the woman being raped in New York, and she's screaming, rape and I don't know what it was, dozens of passerby, nobody even stopped this from going on. They were all guilty, and they were all going to get demonized. So when you say a Christian can't be possessed, the first step to any possession is a moral attitude that that's my brother's sin, that's not mine. That's your problem, not mine. So because that attitude leads us into behaviors of temptation. Once temptation is taken, once the apple is bitten, then you've invited in the worm. And we all know what happens to the poor apple after worms in it. So, that's all I wanted to add. Are we ready for number 13? Or no, we're on 14. 15. Okay. This is a fun one, kids, because a lot of people don't understand how this can possibly work, especially if you're Christian. So number 14 is, or number 15, if you don't believe in a curse, it can't affect you. I don't have to believe in those curtains, but that doesn't change the fact that they're still curtains. Same concept.
Did you see that movie that had, was it Goldie Hawn's daughter? I don't remember her name. It was this voodoo movie. She moves into this old house, and there's this creepy record, and, with this voodoo priestess.
That was the movie. I did see that one, and I forgot the name of the movie.
It was years ago, but it's like they've been running these movies like that where I'm not going to say the hero, but the protagonist, I forgot my old...
protagonist, the helper?
Yeah, they die in the end, and the evil wins. I'm so sick of those kind of movies. And so she gets possessed or something by, one of the slaves on the on the plantation. Not the web. I was thinking the swamp, and then I actually said that.
It's in New Orleans or something like that.
Yeah. But it came up in there that if you don't believe a curse, it won't affect you. And so I don't even know where that came from, the original origins or whatever, but it definitely didn't come from the world of reality. But it is true, Deb, you know that about recognition. It is true that when you give something faith other than God, like you give the demon, demon says, I control your thoughts, like he's the Twilight Zone or something, or the Outer Limits. I know what you're thinking. And they'll tell the oppressed people that through the ear. We said, no, it's not true. You have to direct thought to them. When you're possessed, it's hard to tell your own thoughts are oppressed from their own.
And most people don't even know they have a curse placed on them.
That's right, and there's a lot of that going on.
Isn't that the truth?
I told somebody today, I said, I think we've probably passed over 1,000 times in this last 20 years breaking curses prayers.
Oh, yes.
And it helped so many people, like the case we were talking about last week. And that's how common it is. I was actually telling my other sister named Deb, by the way.
And, we dealt with a case that was a curse not that long ago.
Mm-hmm.
The guy didn't believe in curses. Yeah. He didn't even know, he was like, what the heck is this? I don't even believe in it. I can't even believe that something can happen. But just your neighbor screaming at you across the yard, saying, I curse you and I curse your ground. Better do some breaking curses prayers, folks.
Yeah, no matter whether you believe it or not, it's like the demons thing. Whether you believe in demons or not, they believe in you, and they're there no matter whether you believe it or not. Don't place the center of the universe at yourself.
So that would lead to like a two-part question. Well, why would God allow it if I'm such a good Christian or I'm such a good Catholic? Why would God allow me to be cursed? Well, geez, kids, why would he allow that to happen to you? Yeah. So that you would learn to rely on him in all things, for all things.
Overall. Yeah.
And totally trust him in all things. That's why he might allow that. I don't know the mind of God, but that's what I'm learning.
Yeah, to further that statement, you can say what I've said on people with infestation. I said, if they didn't make themselves known and God had not forced them to make knocks on the door, to scratch the walls, and you would not know what to do with it, and next thing you know, they're hitting your finances, your health, messed up your relationships, your kids don't talk to you anymore, and then you're paying the price and you don't even know because you never saw one thing, you didn't hear anything go bump in the night. Then you're going to think, thank my God in heaven that I actually experienced those things, so I knew what to do about it. Call a priest, call us, call.
Exactly.
That's why we're all given our own free will.
That's right.
Yeah.
So,
every single day
we are in despair, we know to call upon God to help us.
Just one thing I was going to say about that last thing. You sparked something, but I don't know. I guess I can't linger on that one. So if I think of it, I'll add it to next week. Let's go to the next one.
Let's get on
then.
with it, folks.
Thank you.
We have number 17 already. Finally, we're almost at the top of the list. Okay.
17.
Demons can appear as angels of light and project love and peaceful images and messages to you.
Oh, that's so true. You know what the sad ones are? The incubus, succubus cases. They start off as a gentle lover, and then they go to violent rape. They go to oppression, possession, and of course they always like to ruin your life, like I said, with finances, health. But it starts off with a gentle lover, just like when the gals or the guys, the guys get lured in by the beauty. The guys are, really romantic, and it's just like the bait and switch, and then they become the most abusive person, even hitting, and screaming and yelling and breaking her stuff in a rage. Who knows? But there was a bait and switch. They would never got involved with that person if they knew that they were like that. But they had to get lured there by some way, right? And that's the thing. Angel of light, angel of darkness, right? And, of course, it says that in the Bible. The devil can appear as an angel of light, but people are too quick to assume it's, an angel of light because they pay. In our human nature, we look for good things because we want to. So you keep pointing out the good things. Like when we end up counseling a couple and they're talking about someone in their life and how dark they are, they keep trying to make excuses for them because they love them, because it's their kid or whatever, or in some cases the spouse. But they'll overlook all of the negative attributes, like, oh yeah, he goes downtown and he goes to the strip bar and he doesn't come home all night. But he buys me dinner when I'm not feeling well. I mean, you know what I mean? The darkness dictates the nature of the person or the spirit. You're not going to see an angel do anything dark. They're going to be pure straight across the board. But a demon can perceive to be good to keep you going, to keep you sucked in, to get you back. You know, how about the guy who cheats and then he let me look it up to you, and he buys her a fur coat, and he buys her flowers, and then she goes back and he's still cheating.
And then he returns them because he can't pay him after New Year's.
You know, they keep doing it. It's just like the bait and switch continues, and we're human, so we hope for the best, and and pray for it. And anytime the light of it at the end of the tunnel shows up, we're like, oh, thank God, they're starting to change. And they get sucked in this cycle for the rest of their lives sometimes. It's going on 10 years later. It's like, I thought you left that guy 10 years ago, something like that. And they're mimicking a demon who's probably, that we know about that.
Yes.
One of the psychology of demons thing that every person who does the work should understand is that psychology of demons is knowing how they work. They actually turn the person into them as much as they can, so by the time they're possessed, they can actually plug in. Hey, my body's ready. It's already programmed, just like me. I think I'll plug myself in and walk around 24/7, and in this new body.
Well, I think,
a body.
Exactly,
Never had a body.
and I think Deb can attest to this too.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times, the demonic, to hold you, to hold your mind, to hold your sensate experiences, love, hate, anger, to keep you locked in a spiritual state of chaos, will appear to you as your best friend, as an ex-husband, as somebody you love, and smile at you, or maybe move a couple things in your house that they specifically have watched you covet, love, and they know are important to you. And to pull your heartstrings, they'll start messing with you. And they'll mess with you. And they've got 5 years. They got 15 years. They got 20 years. And you think you're seeing the angel spirit of your brother or your father or your mother. And boy, this is nice and this feels good and it's wonderful. What does the Bible say? Test every spirit. Don't believe it. Don't acknowledge it. Ignore it. Because guess what? If it's God, he's not going away. Ignore it, ignore it, ignore it. Because I think the biggest danger that we've seen in a lot of cases is people believe for 3, 5, 10 years they're seeing a deceased loved one. And they believe it's a deceased loved one because they have smells and they have sounds and they have things that are moving. That's not always the case because their health is bad or their relationships are difficult. In other words, things are not peaceful for the most part. That's your biggest indicator that there's a demon appearing to you as this beautiful angel, singing you songs, inspiring you. But guess what? Your heart is broken. You're missing that person that you're seeing, especially like if it's an ex-husband or somebody like that. This is the worst thing, that it traps you for years into believing that you're seeing a loved one. Meanwhile, you're being rent every time. And a lot of people think, but it's so nice to see my husband and I know he's here, and it keeps you in a sobbing, sorrowful, constant grieving state of mind. This isn't healthy. God does not want you like that. Nor does God want you believing that the spirit is actually something good.
You're
and that's
absolutely right, Farah. You're right.
Yeah,
you nailed that.
It gets you going for years, doesn't it, Deb? And people think that, I've been so blessed. I've been seeing my grandmother for 15 years, but I've got fibromyalgia and I still cry myself to sleep sometimes. And my husband and I don't talk anymore, and my kids, they've fallen away. Where's the peace in this household?
Yeah. The family breaks up. Seems like it's always one of the big elements.
Where's the peace?
They usually hold that information back too.
They
that
do.
they become recluse.
We don't get the full story. Yeah. Oh, and like Russell's saying, they believe they have an angel guide that visits them. I know. It's like, as soon as I hear that, they've got, angels, especially St. Michael singing to them, talking to them, and everything else, I tell them, you need to be talking to your spiritual director, not me. And like I told David earlier, that's above my pay grade.
Priest, yeah.
And, you know, Steve is also right. It plays on your emotions.
Completely.
Yeah.
And that's the point, Steve. That's the point I'm trying to make, is that if it was one of those things that just, because there's lots of documented cases of people having a vision of grandma or somebody, and it goes away. Grandma's dead, she comes back, says goodbye, goodbye, gone. Never happens again. But when you're constantly reminded that grandma's there from her perfume, and you've got things moving in the house that were grandma's, and there is no reason to think that this is not something but just something beautiful. But when you think of grandma, occasionally you're bawling your eyes out.
Yeah, they want to keep you that way.
Exactly. They want to keep you in a state of unrest and chaos in all the other areas of your life. And the only good thing is in seeing that spirit. That's not right. That's not right. It's a lie. It's a deception.
Yeah, Marilyn Monroe, and of all people, Red Fox's house is haunted.
Oh, yes.
And they smell the cigars
Terribly.
Red Fox smoked. And Marilyn Monroe, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't pray that it's a purgatory spirit, you know, in that position that we talked about, where there's certain realms of purgatory. And Father, I'm going to put a video. One of our spiritual warfare videos has in there talking about it's right on our the Real Deal's YouTube site. He's talking about the ghost scenarios, and he details them a little bit for about 10 minutes. And I think that's important, too. He's a PhD, and he knows, he's very well averse to, you know, Thomas, the Summa Theologica. And so sometimes we got to revert to the saints to mention this to give people a reminder. Don't assume it's a demon, but then again, very often it is a demon. I hate to say it. And they do that to hold you in that case. The emotional state, God does not work on your emotions. He might use it to give you a honeymoon. Remember the son comes back, a prodigal son.
Your ex-husband to constantly visit you, or your grandma, or your brother, just so you can sit there and bawl for the next week and cry and be sad and be miserable and go, but I have such a good memory of them. Meanwhile, where your heart is torn in 500 places because you miss them so bad. No, God's not going to do that to you. Like Tony says, if it's from God, Grandma's not moving back in. She just isn't.
Yeah, you didn't, you
So
know, like
true.
the church consuls on this. Isn't in the Bible about something about 90 days of grieving? And then you're supposed to just get on with it. Because if you grieve beyond that, it can turn into sloth of a certain point.
It has a tendency to start destroying your spirit.
So it becomes a sin at some point that you're catering to it. And I don't know, it's a little complicated, but
mental issue as well.
Yes,
it'll degrade the mental.
Yeah,
the
it's
spirit,
really difficult to tell those people whose cases call and say, "Oh yeah, I feel so good because my husband's been visiting for 5 years, and I know it's him because he moves his shoes." Why do you still have your husband's shoes after 5 years? Can't you give them to his brother? I understand if you save a suit for your son or something, but a lot of times these attachments that we have to people in our lives are open doorways, kids. They're open doorways because the wound is so raw and so it's so hurtful and painful that it leaves you vulnerable to these kind of demonic entities.
Well, up to the individual who lost their loved one.
Yes.
They need to get closer to God. They need to pray more.
Yeah.
A lot of times when someone loses a loved one, they say that they're mad at God, they hate God, and then when things aren't going right for them, they come back to the fold and they start begging God.
Yeah, that's a good thing, especially when you look at the big picture.
Change for them in a good way.
And there's
they
people.
Have to ask God, please forgive me, and come back to the fold and start praying harder. And this way it helps them, and it helps their loved one pass on.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what it is, not taking the proper protocol of this whole matter. It's the grieving person, there's a grieving mother. 2 stories. The big one is the Lindy Street poltergeist case that's in Long Island. And she was so obsessed over the death of her son, she made an altar. She chipped off his tombstone and made it a relic. And she had one of the worst poltergeist recorded cases in history, at least media-wise. The church keeps a lot of stuff secret on the level, so it's not promoted. That's probably why you're not going to see us write complete books. It's too personal, and I don't know. I don't want to glorify this stuff in that way. We give
Yes.
Kate's examples and we're vague about it. And it's not because of legal reason or anything else, but we don't want to...
Privacy. We want to protect people's privacy.
Yeah. But that's a shame the way grieving people can contact psychic mediums and so forth, and then they're just happy to get something. A demon can easily, they know who the person is. They can give it their... You remember what we said, in 2002? Only my husband would know that. Well, and his personal demon that hangs around him like his guardian angel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Watches constantly.
Sad.
Well, kids, you know what? We're at the top of the hour. We're going to have to save the last... Exactly.
Yeah.
So the last couple we're going to
Two?
save for next week, because I think we're going to do some related topics for you, because there's a lot of good discussion in the chat room tonight going on. So please, like our video, subscribe if you can. Never forget the battle's already won, and we're here to help you win the fight. Right. Always rely on the name of Jesus, kiddies, and make sure you eat your cheese on toast, if you please.
Thank you to our official timekeeper. Thank you, Deb. I'm glad you showed up and you didn't get blown away. And thank you, everybody, our radio listening audience and the FM stations. And
and happy birthday.
YouTube.
Happy anniversary to Denise and her husband. They made it to like year 36 or something. It's like way out there in the decade somewhere. But they're like, or maybe it's, I don't know, 36 or 46, Denise. I don't know how many years it is, but it's all the way out there. But they got married a long time ago. And
36 years?
I know it's something like that. Deb, where are you and Arnie at this year?
33.
33,
right
yeah.
now.
So I think she's like at probably like right around there at 30, just a couple of years younger than you, So, or maybe, I don't know. But happy anniversary, Denise.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Thanks.
Hey, and don't forget, guys, if you want prayer, if you need some prayers, Ken just posted some great prayers you can pray along with, or just play in your house if you need something positive. Go to our YouTube and check out the rosary prayers he posted. Thank you for all the hearts. And you guys stay tuned. We're going to do a giveaway once a month. You just got to remind me. I'm so old and I forget.
Yeah, we got the dust is settled on it changes and the network and whatever. And it's the Rosary Novena. It's a visual, so you can watch the video and pray along with me, and then you can see the mysteries, so you can meditate even when you have all these things in your mind. You can see all these masterpieces of the finding of child Jesus in the temple.
Inspirational pieces.
And I finally got it done. I have the 3. I don't have the 4th one that Pope John Paul II had come up with. Just a joyful, sorrowful, and glorious. But I can play a rosary in a house. It actually helps with spirits. That we've heard it many times. Even playing Christian music when the name Jesus is said in Christian music. Not the other kind in particular, but that's an interesting story in itself. We might even bring up next week on some cases.
Yes, we've got some more interesting topics. We're putting together the show, and we'll be announcing in a day or two, kids, and we'll finish up our list. So good night. Sleep tight. From the Real Deals. Good night.
God bless.
God bless. Night, Deb.
Bye.
The Real Deals TV show, copyright 2018, a Swords of St. Michael production. Any unauthorized duplication or rebroadcast or retransmission of this broadcast without the express written permission of the Swords of the Saint Network or that of Kenneth and Farah Deel is strictly prohibited.